And in that process, there's a transformation, there's an experience you never knew was possible. It's been magical, and I can hardly wait to get into the full, course and see what else is possible because there's so much transformations that's happened. The first time I was in an intro course with you, and you said something like, okay, now listen with the front of your spine.
Hmm.
And my mouth dropped because all of a sudden I was having so much trouble hearing what
Mm.
was being said that day, and all of a sudden I could hear almost everything. And I was like, what does that even mean about my hearing?
I'm here with Orion. Thank you so much for doing this. You've done a lot of stuff and you've worked on yourself. And this is a characteristic that is prevalent with people who really get this work and get a lot from it, is that they've been on a journey of self-discovery and self-development. So paying attention to emotions and their history and even their body is typically not new. I know that you've done a lot of that already. Did you do body specific practices before you started doing coherent body?
Yeah, I've had all kinds of spontaneous injuries for no reason as well, waking up with both medial ligaments in my knee torn and so on. There didn't seem to be any explanation of that. I hired a movement coach for a year, and he, among other things, taught me this practice of, okay, just take a pose and then feel how that feels in your body, and then see if you can like move your body around in this way and that way to kind of relieve the pain, or maybe you want to go more into the pain and just explore. It's very ethereal, but once you practice, it's really impactful actually. I've kind of let that practice go, but in the coherent body practice, I've just instinctively taken that up again. Okay, well, what if I move this way? Okay, there's the half body stretch, in a way that I've never experienced it before. And what was kind of magical about this interaction we've had about tuning into what's working is that all that, as effective as it was, and with my focus that I have, was able to over 6 months now have a lot of breakthroughs. It's all also always focused on the problem.
Yeah.
When I heard that answer to a participant in the online streaming, I was like, oh, and I just tried that. I was amazed at how much the body just kind of automatically reorganized itself. And then I noticed all this bracing up in here and everywhere just kind of let go. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's big. So what you're speaking to, because not everyone knows the context, you're speaking to the comment where I said, well, if you keep focusing on what's wrong, how do you experience what's right? So perception and attention is the driving mechanism in this work. What are you paying attention to? And the first thing we pay attention to is what works. We give you something to do so that you can feel a positive change in your system, and we're going for the feeling of inner connections so that you can feel wholeness from the inside. So it's less about building muscles or stretching out anything. It's not about
Yeah,
that at all. It's all about what are you paying attention to? And I think your case demonstrated that like brilliantly, like that level of powerful change that you could get by shifting what you actually paid attention to, which is to pay attention to what works, keep building a storehouse of proof of your own capacity to be in your body in a comfortable manner.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, and I haven't said yet, but I've got OCD, and so it really drives me to work on myself. And so there's this real drive to focus in on what isn't working. And I have to take that OCD searchlight and go deliberately choose focusing on what's working. And I've noticed, even today, I noticed, it's having an impact on my mental health as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not just physical stuff going on in my life. I have a whole bunch of diagnoses,
Mhm.
for my mental health as well. And it's like, oh, I'm always like trying to sanitize my mood, and it's like, what's working already?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, you actually don't have that module yet. There's a module called Perspectives that's part of the whole fundamentals library. So that is a module where there's a writing practice, and it's less about writing as journaling or anything. It's really writing to help you find the patterns. And once you find the patterns, you can address the patterns directly with your new somatic tools. So one of the tools about seeing what works, I call it It Works Litany. So you spend, let's say, you put on your timer for 2 minutes and you just walk around your place and you just call out everything that works. The lights work, the windows work. You just
Oh,
keep doing that so that it's just flowing out of you and you're not stopping to think about it. You just see it, see it, see it, and you start to build up this capacity to orient to something different, which is what works. We naturally already turn our attention to what needs some attention so that your conscious problem solving mind can problem solve. But if you deliberately turn back to everything that's working, and in this case, I talk about the room, but then you can go into your body. My feet work, my ears work, but what level do your ears work? My ears work, you have a hearing deficit. So, what level? My vibration, I can feel the vibration of my own voice work. As you learn different dimensions of your sensory processing, there's a level of processing, for instance, with your vision. There are a lot of different levels of seeing what works that you may not have seen before. Have you done the Building Self-Trust course? Did you start with that? I
I
think about
haven't
that.
gone through that
Oh, you
one
should
yet.
go through that.
No.
You should go through that because there are a couple ways
Okay.
to use your vision and your perception of the environment that is part of that, giving you different layers of what works.
Do you remember the first time I was in an intro course with you and you said something like, okay, now listen with the front of your spine.
Mm-hmm.
And my mouth dropped because all of a sudden I was having so much trouble hearing what was
Mm-hmm.
being said that day, and all of a sudden I could hear almost everything. And I was like, what does that even mean about my hearing? It's another practice of, I don't know, it's a distraction from a focus on what's wrong, I think,
Yeah, yeah. And
if that makes
I
sense.
wouldn't call it a distraction. I would call it presence. You're being present to the full dimension of the moment. So not just one dimension of what you're focusing on. Have you done the finger exercise from the book?
It's been several months
Yeah,
now.
you should go back to that because again, that's another way to understand how you process information visually. The idea that you can let things exist and it not be the center of your attention. That has a lot to do with spatial perception. We can perceive something closer to us and see the thing in the background that's out of focus. But it's not out of focus because out of focus tends to imply that it's not right and it needs to be focused. I like to use
Yeah,
indistinct because that is just what it is. The nature of it is its nature and it's allowed to be indistinct because you're not focusing on it. So you're
yeah,
allowing everything to be as it is instead of make it clear because your visual system does not see everything clearly all at once. That's kind of an illusion. We're doing a lot with our memory processing and constructing things in our mind, but in the present moment, we are only seeing a really small point very focally. We're scattering around and taking samples of the environment and reconstructing, but like looking at you, for instance, if I'm present to how I see you and I'm just looking at your right eyebrow, and I know that your left eye is there, but I'm not seeing the lashes on your left eye. But if I shift over to your left eye, I still can't see the lashes. I can't see that much, but I can see the smile lines on the corners of that eye and that point on your other brow that I was looking at before. I wouldn't be able to distinguish it. I could recall it from memory, but if I wanted to talk about how many gray hairs you had on that eyebrow, I would have to deliberately shift my attention to it. For me, it was giving myself permission. It's about permission. When I give myself permission for things to exist, for things to move, because when you're moving, Everything else is moving too, except the thing that you're focused on. In tango dancing, when you're doing these turns and you're focused on your partner, the whole room is spinning around except your partner. And so you and your partner, you and anything you're focused on is the present moment experience. Everything
Yeah.
else has permission to exist, but it's indistinct. It's potential. I like to talk about it as potential. It can come into focus, it can become something when you turn your face to it, but the concept of what we think of vision and what we see is a form of visual bracing. That you could brace in your
Yeah.
pelvis, you could brace in your diaphragm, you could brace in your shoulders, you could brace in your vision.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. The mental bracing is never in isolation. It
Yeah.
always uses the body. One thing that really I got present to today, and it's interesting you're talking about the building trust course because it occurs to me that part of the reason we get so focused on problem areas, be it something going on in my head with my mental health or my body, is because we don't trust in the innate intelligence or tendency of the body and the mind to heal itself. So if I wake up with a mood, it's like I don't want to move until I've figured it all out
Yeah.
and put it to bed. So this morning I was waking up from a bad dream and I couldn't shake the depression. We talk about in Landmark, what you allow to be allows you to be.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, I can just let this be and trust that it's all going to work out. And now I'm not even focused on that anymore. I mean, it wants to be there. I can feel it in the background. Yes, you want me. I was able to carry on with my day and I'm actually enjoying my day.
That's nice. Yeah, I think of different levels of trust. Like there's this first level of trust, and I think most people who come into the coherent body work already have this trust that the body has this deeper intelligence and self-healing kind of construction. But then there's another layer of trust that is trust in the unknown or unexpected. And
Right.
but what that speaks to at the core, I think, is trust that you can meet the unknown and unexpected, that you are able to deal with whatever comes your way.
Wow. Okay. That's deepening some of the many things I've heard you say over the last several months.
Yeah, it's self-efficacy, it's standing on your own 2 feet, it's really being present to all the possibilities that are there when you step into the unknown. And literally, when you are, so you haven't gotten to this part of the program yet, but when you are on one foot, rotating around your center and stepping and landing in the other foot, that is the void. You're stepping into the unknown because it's a unstable mechanism and moment and a trust that that next landing, that foot landing will support you. And you've had that experience where you step off and you didn't realize there was a curb there and how jarring it is.
Yeah,
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 and so
right.
I mean, that's what that is. There's this trust, and when you start to lose the trust in yourself, for instance, in your own balancing mechanism, what do? You start looking at your feet. You start looking
Hmm.
down because you're not trusting the feedback that's coming up within you from your body. Because sometimes it's just astounding. Like, how do I know that that curb was there? And sometimes we don't, right? We trip over that thing in the sidewalk. If you have this openness of picking up the indistinct stuff, you perceive things. But if you're trying to focus and you focus by shutting off the movement and the environment and all the indistinct stuff, you miss it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we pick up through movement, through change in light, minimal change in light, shades, gradation, and when there's an inconsistency that you could kind of see on the ground, instead of being smooth, there's kind of like a jump up there. You perceive that if your attention is open to the fullness of the environment, which includes things that are indistinct, which include the things in your peripheral vision. And the body's response to perceiving the things that are indistinct is calming because you're immersing yourself in the center of the moment instead of trying to shut out things so that you can focus.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking that the tendency to focus on what's wrong
Mhm.
is maybe not every time, but a lot of the reason why we end up tripping over those indistinct things,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're so like, okay, got to solve this problem, and then just a really narrow focus. And
Yeah. And then the other end is when you understand that and you're told if you don't know what to do in order to do that, if you're just told to relax, people just kind of like, then they're not focused at all. And then they're just a little bit. So the knowing what to do doesn't mean that you know how to get there. And I hear that a lot with
yeah,
people who have studied other things. They're like, okay, this aligns with everything I was told to do, like what I should be doing, but they don't tell me how to do it.
I'm thinking back about what I was saying about, okay, so if I'm focused in on what's wrong, and the interesting thing about that is I'm not even aware that I'm focusing in on what's wrong. And
Yeah.
that's why it was so surprising to me. Like, oh, I got to relax into my body just by, I don't know. I wasn't like, I have a lot of focus areas in my body where I've had problems and injuries and so on, and there's various degrees of pain. There's like so many things I could focus in on, and then in my mind as well. But it's like just stopping and, well, what can I find that actually is working?
Yeah.
It was it was quite astonishing to me to see just how unconscious I was about the problem focus. Usually you think about going and taking a course and learning knowledge. And there is that because you need a new context from within which to discover something completely new about what's possible. But like coherent body, we're doing, as you call them, experiments with the body rather than, okay, well, here's an exercise to do 10 reps or whatever. And we're looking for the connection in our body for what's working. And in that process, there's a transformation, there's an experience you never knew was possible. And just in revisiting the courses that I have purchased over and over, and I hear things, you say things that I've never heard before, and possibly because I didn't have enough experience in my body to even catch what you were saying, and possibly because I was like just focused on what was wrong. So, yeah, it's very transformation focused as opposed to, okay, if I sit in a class and learn some things, my body's going to work better. And as a matter of fact, I remember in the early workshops that I took and reading the book, I was like, I didn't even comprehend a lot of what I was reading.
Yeah.
But going back and reading the book the second time, or going back and retaking those courses that I have access to, it's like, oh, I never noticed that before. But I've been experimenting and getting some experience. And so now it's almost like learning the ABCs and a few words of vocabulary.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language, learning the language of the body and speaking body. So you can have that conversation and have that relationship to it. Well, you learned it in the beginning, like doing small movements, making small micro adjustments with your movement coach. And here, what you're learning is the specificity of what you can do and apply so that you are reinforcing how the body was designed to stand and how it was designed to move forward. And those two points, everything goes towards that. So there's a connection between all the different experiments, that they're not a random list of a bunch of things. They are all
Hmm.
in service to those two things, which really comes down to having more self-efficacy because your body is connected and whole. And
Yeah.
the downstream things that happen are you feel more calm, you feel more capable, you see more options, you hear more.
Hmm.
Going through something, you perceive more of the dimensions of what's being presented.
The other thing about working with you has that's been astonishing though at the same time is that when there are genuine serious blocks to being able to have some of those new discoveries and experiences. You have, I don't know, you're kind of ingenious. You come up with all these different things, but you had this course called the anterior tilt. I don't think I even have anterior tilt, but I heard something about, okay, the upper body's so stiff. Well, just discovering how my clavicle could move made a complete difference to my hip, and it really is all connected. And now that I've been like practicing in that course for several months, I go back and everything that you were saying makes sense at a completely new level.
Yeah, yeah.
Astonishing.
And so that is the body of resource. And that's what's really fun because the more you work with this, the more you dive in deeper. Have you seen that post I did about the Mandelbrot fractal?
I have seen that,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's what the
Yeah.
experience is like. It's the same, but you keep going in and it's different. And it keeps opening up in a different way, but it's the same. It's the same
Well,
form.
and because of the stiffness, there were experiences that seem like genuinely to have been physically unavailable to me
Mhm.
several months back, that it's like now my sacrum is able, like when I'm doing the half body stretch or whatever, it's like my sacrum's, and I'm able to relax my, my clavicles and my diaphragm. And I had a fairly serious upper lumbar injury, and that was like really tugging. And all that's been able to become released
Mm.
over the last several months of just experimenting and experimenting. So yeah, it's been magical, and I can hardly wait to get into the full, course and see what else is possible. Because I mean, there's so much transformations that's happened,
Mhm.
and there's so much more that I suspect could be possible. And I just want to say, like, I had a serious injury to my
Mhm.
left foot where I fell backwards on it with it bent back, full force with my bum in 2010. And yesterday, I was walking upstairs, and just from the different experiments with the three keys and so on that I've done, I was actually noticing an arch show up in my left foot
Mhm.
without using muscles to do it.
Nice.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's fun, huh? Yeah.
It was delightful. And yeah, there were three things that really opened up like that just yesterday. And it was my birthday yesterday, so I
Oh,
thought,
happy
hey,
birthday. Oh, yeah, nice.
thank you, universe.
Those are the sorts of like fun surprises that start building this trust in the
Mhm.
resilience and capacity, the unexplored potential that is contained within this intelligent system, which is the human
Yeah,
body that has evolved over billions of years to walk and stand and to move forward. And so that reference point is your gift that's available to you all the time. But I will say, I spoke to you before we started recording about I have a lot of people in the course who come from different avenues. They have different layers of chronic injuries or illness or capacities, even. So I'm trying to see what is the commonality. And there is this commonality of orientation, even though you think you're orienting to the problem, there's enough, let's say, optimism and resilience within you coming to the course that has made you gather your honey of sort, right? All these different threads and streams, and for you to keep taking another step moving forward is already available to you. You've already
yeah.
studied a lot, but along the way, you've learned at every step, and you know that. That's what I hear a lot of people say that, yeah, I've studied a lot and I've learned it, but this connects a lot of things together in a pretty powerful way, pretty potent way that you could feel. But there is this forward movement and this dedication to exploring something new. I think,
Yeah.
the big five traits, I mean, being curious and open to new experiences is something that's very, very common in the people who do well with this work.
Yeah, and in relation to that, there's been a number of times through my life and recently, like 2024, like just before I hired the movement coach, I mean, I literally, there was no physiotherapy exercise that I could do anymore. There's maybe two or three. I had intercostal stuff going, and so literally coming to, there's nowhere for me to go, and like wondering if I was heading for a nursing home, because without the ability to strengthen my muscles. And now I'm not even concerned about strengthening muscles because I have a whole different context. What I've discovered is with that optimism, it seems to be, and I'll just throw this out to anyone who's listening, seems to be a response from the universe that your
Mm,
faith in something being possible gets answered again and
mm,
again.
mm.
It's like, yeah, when I first saw one of your ads on Facebook, I didn't even understand what you were saying, but I was just like, for some reason, it's like, no, I got to go do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't even understand what she's
I
saying. And
remember
it's
I
like,
remember that first intro course you came into because there are a lot of people who had already had exposure to my work and you were brand new. And you
yeah,
kept saying, "Excuse me, I don't understand anything that you're saying." I remember that, and here you are, and that was great because I just never know who's going to accelerate with this work. I'm trying to communicate to people who recognize themselves that there is this, and even though you said you're focused so much on the problem with your OCD, you would drive a little bit too hard, but underneath that, there is this thread of optimism, I guess, or
mhm.
persistence, or it has to be optimism,
Determination. It's,
determination. Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
if just
Willingness.
show me a way and I'll make it happen, damn it.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's so delicious about this new concept or this new distinction about the ability to focus in on what's working, the whole thing about faith, yes, there's determination, but there's also a surrender
Mm.
aspect to faith. I think it takes a leap of faith at first to go, okay, well, what is working, and could there actually be a benefit to adopting an approach like that? There's the determination and there's the surrender. I'm not sure I'll ever understand how they both work together, but they seem to be essential ingredients to
You know,
moving forward.
to take that step into the void, to have faith that you can experience something new and it's not going to destroy you. That is that surrender.
Yeah, this is
You
part of the
don't know.
practice in Landmark, approach. Yes, you've probably done what we're about to do before. Approach it like it's your first time. They were talking about being responsible for our attitude. And I remember getting into this seminar and just looking at this seminar leader, and I'm like, this is not working for me. And I was like, well, what would it be like to just be responsible for my attitude? And I ended up at the end of the seminar, she did not do it for me, but I had a very powerful result. It's like, okay.
I think that kind of links in with ownership and ownership of being able to be present, really.
And we're human, so we don't always do it, but we also, when we discover these distinctions, we can try them on like an article of clothing and see what happens,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Like holding space for the unexpected. Like you have, what you know and what you expect, that pattern recognition, but then also creating a separate space for the unknown and unexpected. So that's like a part of the dynamic at all times. That something will happen in a way that you didn't predict. And that's the part that makes every present moment enticing and interesting instead of something that's already made and formed and shaped and delivered.
What I'm really present to right now is that working with your work has been an excellent opportunity for me to expect the unexpected
No.
because it happens so often. It's ridiculous. And it's like several times a week, it's like, oh, I've never experienced that before, you know?
So that's the difference between this work and like building muscles or getting in shape. It happens very quickly because we're not working with the structure to build it. The building's already there. We're just shoring it up back to its center point so that all the levers
Yeah.
work the way they're meant to work. All the movement in the spine turns the way it's meant to turn. On top of that, when you feel that new space, that you start to examine the stories that hold you and will revert you back to the old structure.
Yeah. Well, I really like the metaphor that I pick up from working with you. That's like more power with less force.
Yeah, because the power comes from the gravitational field. If you just think of the
Yeah.
whole Earth as being your battery, that you don't have to carry your body because you're just a small little thing on this giant power source. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that was what happened yesterday with my ankle is I found it like there were so many subtle adjustments that have needed to happen over several months. Some of them may not have even been available to me physically when I began. And then it just clicked yesterday and I just know from even working with my OCD that if I experience something new mentally that has never been available to me before, it takes my breath away, and then it might be a while before I find that or have stumble on that experience again, but it will happen and again, and then eventually I can get access to it at will, you know?
Yeah, and also, I don't know if you saw that post, there's this orientation around a new experience that it's new to you. So when you feel it, you do get that rush. It's new, but you want it to become familiar. So if
Yeah.
in order to get that rush in the same way, what you have to do is go back to your old. So if you want to integrate it, it's a different
Oh,
process. When you integrate it, you start to understand how it relates to your whole story and the way you speak to yourself and the way you know yourself. So if you start to say out loud what you're feeling, what it means to you, how it makes you feel as a person, and there's a post in the Circle platform about it, but as you start to do that, you will hear yourself say certain things over and over again. It's powerful when you come to the live sessions and hear other people talk about it and hear me coach other people, or I can coach you through it. I'll keep coaching you until you start to fall on the words that tell your story. Because at first you'll talk about the body and it'll be a neutral thing, but then you'll start to contextualize those body words into your personal story words, and sometimes people will use terms and phrases that they've heard in self-development or something, and it just doesn't land. It's not them. But they will find their way around and use their own words, and you will experience it. You'll know it, or you'll see it, you'll witness it. Everybody knows it. There's more of them there. I had someone here and we're walking around for maybe like 10 minutes as I was trying to coach her through it. And she knew that she's like, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. She kept going. She goes, that's it. And she felt it. She felt her shoulder fall into place as she found the right words to describe what it was that was going on.
wow.
Yeah, what it was that was going on that was holding her in that old pattern, how she could reveal that old pattern to herself. When you have an emotion, if you're able to name the emotion, that just extinguishes the activation. So it completes the feedback loop. So it's the same thing when you have a story arc and a belief about yourself. When you say it out loud in a way that's authentic and honest to yourself, that feedback loop is closed. You can see for yourself what you're saying to yourself, and you can feel when you feel new body feeling how that's not true.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about that, but now with the experiences I've had, I don't know, every time I hear it, it lands in a fresh way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how that happens. It's like there's more space inside of you to listen from.
Yeah, and I think the practice just saying out loud what I'm doing, for example, There's part of me that's resistant to that practice because it
Mm,
feels like I'm getting into my head and my OCD and then I get tired and blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of curious if I will discover some mental connection that is making that tiring,
mm,
that I can go, oh, I don't need that.
mm.
Like there's some mental bracing going on or something. It's just going to be curious to explore. Yeah, there's so much to explore.
All
I guess
right.
that's part of being a rich human being.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. This is a fun conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.